Hello, and welcome to the Business of Happiness podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tarryn MacCarthy, and today is going to be a great day. I hope that wherever you are in this world, you are taking this time for yourself. Whether you're driving, whether you're walking, going for a walk, or you're sitting doing the dishes, whatever you're doing today, I hope you're able to infuse a little bit of self-compassion and gratitude for yourself, for taking this moment to listen to this podcast, to know yourself more, to love yourself more, and to really honor the fact that you want more in life. You want to feel better more of the time. And that's not a small thing. Recognizing that you actually create your own reality, and that when you take care of yourself, that's when your life turns beautiful corners and you actually then get to have greater impact on the world. I always say when you feel good, you can do good. And I don't just mean that from a physical perspective. We all know that truth, right? When you wake up in the morning and you stretch and you work out and you find some quiet time, if meditation is in your practice, you have a phenomenal day. There's no bad day when you start from a place of fueling yourself, not just nutritionally, but serving your body, fueling your body and your mind with feeling good from within. And it's so cool when we start to realize, oh, wait a minute. It's not the things outside of me that are stopping me from feeling good. It's actually myself. It's actually my own resistance and limitations to asking for what I need and actually going out there and taking it. Okay, so today I want to talk to you about something that seems so far away from dentistry. And I really believe as dentists, we learn to distance ourselves from it. And it's such a key component to growth, development, health, learning, and that is the concept of play. Now, I don't know if you're like me, but many of us, I believe, grew up really quickly and learned how to be an adult at a very young age, for whatever reason it is. Maybe in your childhood, it was a requirement because your family was unstable, or you needed to really step up and be responsible for adults who were not responsible in your life. And sometimes as children, adults think that premature maturity or becoming more responsible at a younger age is actually a sign of intelligence, a sign of future success. So maybe it was encouraged to be more serious in your world. Or maybe you were rewarded when you were more serious and you didn't give yourself time to play. Or you learned to be very strict with your time and conditional. And maybe you used play as a reward. I will give myself permission to play when I get XYZ done. Isn't it interesting just to look back and see what was your relationship as a child with play? Because play is such a critical component of learning. And of course, there's so many studies to corroborate this. As we've looked at education, especially in children, we've really learned that play actually helps us to internalize and really understand concepts better. It's such an important part of learning. And what studies show is that children who are deprived of play actually show less brain development. They show less success at school and later in life. I was just thinking this morning, there's this really beautiful concept in Hinduism called Leela. And Leela is the Hindu concept of divine play. And the way that this divine play came about is this concept that it's actually the source of creation, that God was just playing around when he created the earth. And out of this sense of play came all this incredible abundance and what we now know as life here on earth. And isn't that so interesting? I wonder if you can remember time in your life when you were just playing, just fooling around, no agenda, no need for a certain outcome, no intention for an accomplishment. And yet there was a spark in that sense of play, a creative spark that maybe started you down a new trajectory in your life. Was there ever a moment like that in your life where you think back and you go, oh my gosh, I had that insight because I was in the moment of play. I was allowing my mind to just be creative, to let loose, to have no confines. And it was in those moments that I had great insight, greater perspective. I wonder if you can identify a moment like that. Or maybe in a moment of play, it was when you really created a connection with another human being. Because play is also a way of bonding. So we're going to talk about all these concepts today and how we can bring them into, dentistry and leadership. Because they are so important and we tend to forget the importance of it. I mean, I don't remember a class in dental school about play, or high school or college for that matter. But really, you know in your practice that when you allow for a little bit of play, it has enormous rewards. So let's just look at play very closely today. Play is how we experience happiness, right? Play is an opportunity to let happiness kind of go with abandon. And what I love about play, if you imagine for a moment a scene of children playing, or you remember yourself as a child playing, children really, in this play, they step out of time. Think about children playing. They forget what time it is. Maybe they even forget to eat. You really have to call a kid in from play. Come on, time to come in, time for dinner. And then they ignore you and they ignore you and they ignore you. They lose the concept of time in play. There's so much power in that. I know we think that there's like a responsibility and a maturity to sticking to time and really understanding time. But think about how much time has really limited you in practice and in your life. We feel like we're running out of time. We feel like there never is enough time. We always feel like the clock is ticking loudly in our ear, ready for the next patient, running late for the next patient. Think about the power of letting go of the pressure of time and how freeing it is when you give yourself that permission. And that's what we see in children. They literally step outside of time in play. Time doesn't take on its regular dimension, right? Sometimes it feels like time's flying when you're playing. Play is also that source of deep creation. It's when we start experimenting, fooling around, doing things that aren't maybe realistic, right? It can be fantasy. We're without the confines of what we've learned should or shouldn't be. Play is when we get to be creative beyond the bounds of what we think we know. And that's really the nidus of ingenuity, of invention, is when we play. Now let's take that back into the concept of dentistry. I mean, even in orthodontics, I know coming up, when you get a case that is unique or challenging, it's when you don't try to follow the rules, when you think, well, how can I just think outside the box? There's a sense of play. Play takes away the inevitability of the outcome. It gives way to possibility. I wonder if, I love that phrase, what if we step into this fantasy world of new possibility, knowing that in the unknown is where all possibility lies. And that's where play allows us to be. And when we don't make things so serious, the outcome doesn't have to be so serious. That's when we give ourselves opportunity to think outside the box. I know we all have this great value for thinking outside the box, but how do you actually do it? Well, play is one way. It's also, as I mentioned before, a way of connecting to others. This is so powerful in practice, in dentistry, with a team. It's the more we can lean into play with our team that we give them that sense of safety. There's no rules. That's why having, staff development and staff connection and bonding is so important. It's not just about their intellectual development. It's about giving them an opportunity to let loose, to play. I don't know if you've done this with your team, but thinking back over the years, when were the moments that you most enjoyed hanging out with your team? I think about my team, and we did this great, it was called Board and Brush. I don't know if you have one near you, but it's this cool crafting where you get to paint wood and distress it and make something beautiful for your home. And there's no pressure. You're banging away at things. You're using hammers. You're using, distressing tools, nails. You're painting. You're getting messy. Everyone's laughing. That sense of play is when we have our most intimate connection. We get to see each other outside of the office. How important is that bonding? It's also an opportunity to learn how to work together. It strengthens teamwork. And now think about those moments when you brought play into your practice. In orthodontics, we do it regularly. We're constantly having themes and fun games. And it really is a source of connecting to our patients and our community. It creates a bond. That levity has great opportunity for human connection. And what we see biologically, neurologically, when we are in play, the release of oxytocin and dopamine. Those are the two big neurochemicals that are being released. Of course, serotonin as well, some endorphins, but oxytocin and dopamine spike. And remember, oxytocin is that connection bonding hormone. It's the societal building, community building hormone. So when we do that, we also create a sense of safety for our patients when we can infuse levity into the practice. Now, those are all things that we're doing outwardly for our team and for our patients, and a way for us to really strengthen and support the success, not just of your business, but of the treatment, right? Of whatever you're offering. We know how critical safety and confidence in you and teamwork is for your patient success. But now let's talk about the impact on you personally. That sense of bonding is how we find meaning and value in our jobs, in our work every day. When you feel like you've had that human connection with someone, it gives you purpose, colors what you're doing every day. It makes going to work more important, gives it value. And we do that when we allow for some play. When we're making things so serious, things feel really heavy. And I think in dentistry, we tend to do that very easily. We put such high expectation and weight on the outcome of the things that we do, not just on the outcome of your MOD, but the outcome of your payroll and your bank account, right? We put so many outside value on whether or not we're doing well. And we make that a part of who we are. We make those, defining characters of who we are. But what if we allowed things to just be a little lighter? What if every day you went in and just gave yourself permission to play and make it not so serious? What if every day you could incorporate just 1% more levity? It reminds us to take ourselves less seriously. It gives us room to make mistakes, gives us room to try new things. It adds a lightness, that heavy feeling, that exhausted feeling you get at the end of the day. What if we infused a little bit of levity and lightness? And then also recognize how play welcomes courageous action. If it doesn't matter, if the outcome isn't that serious, you're more likely to take a chance. Think about yourself playing as a child. The ridiculous things you did in play that maybe you would have held yourself back if you were doing it on stage in front of your teachers. The same is true in our adult lives. What if you just played at trying something new and it didn't matter how well you did it? Why not play with a new bracket system in orthodontics, or a new CT scanner, or a new software, or a new way of connecting with patients, a new form of communication? Why not shift things up a little bit? And allow yourself to not always do the things that you've always done, but actually play with something new. Because learning happens with play. And play is not only one of the ways we get to experiment with things, but it consolidates learning. So studies showed that when children sat down and learned something or were taught something, either one, and then engaged in play afterwards, they consolidated that learning and they had better recall of what they sat down and learned. Why? Because play relieves stress. And here we come back to when you feel good, you can do good. It improves your mood. And when we don't have that sense of stress, you don't have the constriction in your body, you don't go into fight or flight, you actually welcome and open up those neuronal pathways for new integration of the material you just were present for. So it was really interesting. I was talking to my son about this concept as I was preparing for this podcast. He is very studious. He has it dialed in. He is very clear on maximizing his learning. This is brain growth and development is a passion of his. And so he really knows how to sit down. He learns, studies, and then he meditates. I mean, he really has it dialed in. He's very, very particular. He incorporates physical movement. He has it down to a T. And he was talking to me about how work can feel like play. And I thought that was a really interesting conversation because I think we've convinced ourselves of that in dentistry. My son was saying that when you love what you do, why not do more of it? And I couldn't agree more. I think that's amazing. And there's a very distinct difference between enjoyment and pleasure that we get from doing work, focusing, and really having a direct intention for a certain accomplishment or goal, and the abandon and freedom of play. Very, very different. The concepts are very different. I love what I do. I love, love, love my coaching. I love supporting clients in groups and one-on-one. I love witnessing that opening and that freedom and, dropping stress and really seeing success and feeling good in your life. I love supporting my clients that way. I could do it all day and receive so much of it. It is my passion and I have so much fun. But there's a very big difference between being in work and being in play. And I know that difference internally. And only you can know that for yourself. When are you really enjoying what you're doing and loving it? And how can you also infuse play? So play infusing in your work is so important. But it's also very important to step outside of work and experience it because that's really where true abandon and growth happens. It's a stress reliever. And that is so important, especially in a profession like ours, where we do experience so much stress by the nature of what we do. Having that reprieve regularly. I mean, what would it look like to infuse play every day, and not just make play the reward, but allowing for play to be the way we access better success and health and mental and emotional resilience. Because play allows for boosting mood and also heals trauma because it makes everything less serious. It's really interesting. They did this research project in 2019 on patients who had type 1 diabetes. And for 14 days, they gave them daily swaths of time for play and then helped them a little bit to learn how to play, which, by the way, is not a small thing. I think I practiced being serious and grown up since I was very little. And I actually had to teach myself how to play as an adult. Play felt very uncomfortable. So for all the mamas out there who are super uncomfortable when their kids play with Barbies or toys or trucks or in the playground and they just feel like they can crawl out of their skin, I see you, mama. I've been there. I had a hard time when my kids would play when they were little. In fact, I used their playtime as a time for me to get work done. I thought, okay, they're being distracted with their own play, but I rarely engaged in play because it was so uncomfortable. So in this research study, they actually taught some of these adults how to play. They were looking at these type 1 diabetics, And after 14 days, they looked at both cohorts, the ones who had this time for play and type 1 diabetics who did not get put into this program. And what they saw was increased mood, increased greater perception of coping effectively. So after just 14 days, each person in the study reported that they thought they could cope better with the challenges of their disease. And then additionally, they found, and this was a surprise, that they were receiving greater support from their partners. So building that sense of levity actually strengthened their relationships, which we know is such a key component of happiness and longevity, is the quality of the relationships in your life. It's so amazing when we really start thinking about play and we realize how absent it's been. What we know is that when mammals play, their brains are activated in new ways that create new neuronal connections. We call this learning. We call this growth. The same is true for us as human beings. So I'd love for you to just consider this. What is holding you back from playing? Is there a limiting belief that you're holding on to somewhere from your past that said that play was frivolous or meaningless or waste of time, or that you don't deserve it? Isn't that interesting? Or that you'll play when, right? We'll use it as a reward, and maybe you keep kicking that can down the road and you never actually get there. But what if we actually started incorporating it into our daily lives and really considering doing it in the office, but also as a source of fueling yourself outside of the office? We all know that when you feel good, you can do good. So how can you allow for this really simple concept of play to help you feel good? And what does play look like to you? Well, I thank you again, my friends, for being here for this beautiful presentation of play. How funny that we're talking about teaching ourselves as adults how to play again. But this is not a small thing. This can have a huge impact on your life. And maybe play is already a part of it. And if it is, oh my gosh, I salute you. And that is amazing. Allow yourself to do more of it. Because when you feel good, that, my friend, is when you can really start to do good. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Business of Happiness podcast. If this episode brought you new perspective and value, I invite you to subscribe so that you catch all upcoming episodes and leave us a review. And if you know of a friend or colleague who could benefit from this perspective, share this episode with them and empower their day. For more information about the Business of Happiness and the Radical Happiness for Practitioners course, find me on www.thebizofhappiness.com. See you there.